I wanted to give you a little bit of info on how you're going to work on your data projects. Um, this is essentially the kind of final projects to do, so you can start them at any time, but especially when you're, I don't want to say completed a mastery quiz, but when you feel comfortable to do mastery quiz is about the time to start a project. Um, and so where are those? How do you do them? Where do you get the data? Um, and I think I posted an announcement, but in case you want to see it live here, a little more visual. So all of the data projects are in the workbook. Right. So if you haven't downloaded the workbook and if you're not following along on the videos, you get that from this PDF here. You can also pick it up at the bookstore. It's free. They have copies enough for everyone. Um, for was it the next semester? Books have been free for a little while, so same idea. Okay, so let's go through the Unit 2 project. Um, there are projects in most of the units. You only need to do 2 or 3, right? I think it's 2 or 3, depending what grade you're going for. Um, and so you don't need one from every unit. So there's one for Unit 2 there. There's one for Unit 3. I think these are both nice and straightforward ones. I would do those. They don't necessarily get harder. Some of them are somewhat straightforward, but you might as well do them early and get them done. Um, there is a Unit 4 one. There is not for Unit 5. There is for Unit 6. I don't really recommend the 6 one. It's like designing an experiment. It's kind of awkward. So if it was me, I would do 2, 3, and maybe 8. I think if you need to do 3 for an A. So you're just going to turn to the page in the workbook where that is. Let's say we go to, let's go 3. So page 87. That's not going to be the PDF number. It's 82 here. It's a few pages off from the pages of the PDF itself. 87. So we just passed it. Okay, so there are some things that you need to include. If this was in person, we would be doing these together as like a poster. So it'll title them as posters. But I've described on Canvas and how to change that back for us here online. So your poster should include, so your report, it's kind of a hybrid between like an essay and like a set of slides. So you can include all of your stuff in your report. I have a few professional ones linked from Crafton, and I have at least one student one linked. So research question, we're going to give you the research question. Description of the data, just very quickly describe the data, what variables you chose to study. Unit 3 will be scatter plots. Use the vocabulary relevant to the unit, and then make sure you have an answer to the question. So one of the first ones you could work with is about movies. This is a good one for Unit 2. Sometimes the questions are a little harder or not, so you feel free to reach out to me and say, is this one of the good questions? For example, everything in Unit 3 is pretty straightforward. I think it's Unit 2. And remember there's some question about a belt. It's really hard to answer that question. Skip the belt one if you do the Unit 2 one. And feel free to keep some of them involve the same data sets. So if you pick one and then you see it again, feel free to pick that. Let's look at this pediatrician one. So predicting height and weight, I think has become much more popular for pediatricians now with access to so much more data. I don't have kids myself, but I hear from family members that do. They mention how tall they're expected to be and give their percentile height. Percentile is a measurement like quartiles, but just more detailed. And so you just get to choose one of these. You can pick any of these here. So is strength at age 9 a good way to predict strength at 18? For which gender is strength a better predictor? So you can choose any one of these. So imagine you did that one. So you're going to go to StatCrunch and find the child development data file in our group. So if you haven't joined our group, go ahead and log into StatCrunch. logging in here. Then you're going to go to groups. You're going to search Crafton if you haven't already. That's me, I made it. And so you're going to open it and then join group. Next time you can come back and it'll be in my groups. Right, and so there should be a data set called child development, and that'll open up the data set. So those are the only place they're located. They might be some of the same data sets on Canvas, but I'd recommend going through the group direction to get them. Okay, and so from then on, that's the data set, and that's the description, and you're on your own. So these are kind of like final projects, but it's not one big combined project. And so now you want to think, in terms of Unit 3, how do you answer that question? Is strength at age 9 a good way to predict strength at age 18? So I'm going to have to look at all the different variables. A little hard to read all of them, so I made my window a little smaller here. So one of these columns should be strength. Whichever one you're interested, you could choose. So I do see some strength ones. Right, Unit 3, we have correlation and the regression, and scatter plots are the things we choose to study there. So if it's a graph, you can get the scatter plot there. For the statistics, we have in regression the linear. Both of those, I think you can calculate the correlation. And what do you need to include to it? These are the particular things you need to include. There's a kind of a description within each unit. Sometimes it's a little different. The graphs and charts are specific to those units. And there is a little bit more information. So how do you put that together? And so this is to kind of keep track of all of our quizzes and data projects. 2, 3, and 8, I will enter your grades for there. Sorry, I realized that you need to take the quiz here, so sorry. This is to keep track of all your grading, but you can open them and see how you're doing. There's the data projects, so whichever ones you want to submit to, you can choose. I have some kind of recommended due dates on when you should be doing them, if you choose that one. But you get to choose any ones you want to do, 2 or 3 of them. Feel free to choose the ones right now and get them done. Or feel free to choose the units 2 and 3 and do them a little later. You have the main things in our grading system that you need to focus on are the mastery quizzes and the data projects. The end of the semester, the last few days, you'll be presenting them and we'll share out everybody's. So the data project description has kind of a detailed description. So I gave some examples that are professional. So this is not exactly the same thing. These are by, every school has like a research department that helps answer questions about the research and the data that the school collects. And so the G stands for Giovanni Sosa is he's the dean. So he's in charge of the research group. And so he wrote a very simple one here. This is what yours should look like. It's a little more professional looking with all the little headings. Don't worry about that. And my recommendation is to follow these 3 categories. I'm not going to be strict on that. So this is not MLA format or anything like that. Just some sort of intro or overview. Methodology is a stats word that just kind of describes in general what you're doing, where your data came from, how you're studying it. That's like this description of the source data and variables that would go in the methodology section. And then findings is if you have these short reports, a quick way to capture that. What are all the numbers and stuff you calculated, some graphs, preferably label those graphs, and then when you refer to them, just say which figure. So it's a very common kind of report style format in statistics and data science and business also. So here's a different one that's a little bit more information here and a little bit more graphical. Feel free to try and make yours look a little nicer. So again, there's no particular formatting. They do have some references. Our version is just the StatCrunch data set. And so these are actually available on Krafton's website. This gives you an idea. Don't look at this too much because these are professional versions, but I want to give you an idea. And then here is a student who let us use theirs. I used to call them mini projects. I clarified that they're data. So their introduction, their methodology, what they're choosing to study, how they're going to do that, their conclusion. They included some of the values in the methodology. Don't stress too much exactly how you choose that. And then the relevant graphs that they've kind of referenced above, and the calculations. So don't worry about kind of making it look perfect. Just make sure it flows. And like everything else in this class that kind of are the big items for grading, it's on a pass-fail basis. And so if it's good enough, I will let you know. I'll give you some comments. And if it's not, I'll tell you where you need to work on. So you don't want to wait to the end of the semester to do these, because then you're not going to have any chance to revise them if needed. You do have to get a certain amount of them completed. And I might give you some comments that say, if this is one that you're going to present on, then you should work on this area a little more. And so that is just turning these into a normal PowerPoint presentation and presenting it to us instead. So there's the written report version, and then you're going to turn that into a PowerPoint, and you don't need to present all of them. Again, it depends on the grade what you need to do, and you'll do something like we're doing here. You can just do a screen record presenting your slides. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I think you should really start these in about a week or two. Kind of we're in the halfway point of the class. You've taken 1 or 2 mastery quizzes, passed 1 or 2. Then I would transition over into the data projects. All right, I'll see you around.